Now to the latest in the tragic death of NBA All-Star Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna and 7 other people who were killed in yesterday's helicopter crash.
Tonight, the tributes continue to pour in as landmarks across the country light up in purple and gold to honor Bryant and the colors of the team he played on for 20 years. Today, we learned the names of all of the victims on the helicopter at the time.
And just in the past hour, LeBron James broke his silence on Kobe's death. In this Instagram post, the All-Star player expressed distress every time he thought about what to write. He wrote that he had spoken with Kobe the morning of the crash while he was heading back to LA from Saturday night's game where he surpassed Kobe on the all-time scoring list. And tonight, the NBA announced it is postponing Tuesday night's game between the Lakers and the LA Clippers. Thousands of people continue to gather outside the Staples Center ever since the news broke of Kobe's death. And at this hour, it is still not clear what caused that helicopter to crash.
But the NTSB and the FAA are on scene trying to figure out what happened in the moments before the helicopter crashed. On your side's Camrell Eppinger is here now with the latest on the investigation. Cam.
Heather and Anthony, according to the Los Angeles Police Department, they say weather could have played a factor. Weather and visibility conditions were so poor that the agency decided to ground its helicopters during the time of the crash. We also know that moments before the helicopter went down, the pilot was trying to avoid a layer of clouds. The federal safety inspectors shedding light on what happened moments before Sunday's helicopter crash, which killed Kobe Bryant and 8 others. In a press conference on Monday, National Transportation and Safety Board member Jennifer Homendy said the helicopter was traveling from John Wayne Airport in Santa Ana to Burbank. While flying near the destination, the pilot requested permission to fly through a controlled airspace under what's called special visual flight rules, weather conditions that can impact visibility severely.
While awaiting approval, the helicopter circled for 12 minutes until the special VFR was approved by air traffic control.
Moments later, the pilot makes another request. This time, it's for flight following or navigational assistance from air traffic controllers. Local Navy pilot Mark McManus, with 27 years of experience, explains what that means.
And that is, they will provide you notifications and alerts as the best they can for while you're flying.
2 Echo X-ray, you're still too low level for flight following at this time.
According to the NTSB, the helicopter was not in range to provide flight assistance. Minutes later, the pilot notified controllers that he was trying to avoid clouds.
When ATC asked what the pilot planned to do, there was no reply.
McManus suggests the pilot hit something while trying to climb higher.
Guessing based on what I'm seeing and what I've read in the news reports, that is most likely what happened. The pilot was trying to remain clear of the clouds and continue on his way. The clouds descended, he was in the mountains and hit something.
And officials say the helicopter did not have a black box on board and it was not required to have one. More facts on the investigation are expected to be released tomorrow. Now, we also learned today Kobe Bryant will be inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame later this year in August. The ceremony will be held in Springfield, Massachusetts. Back to you guys.